So we're going to move on now to the 7025 machine, and I'm really just going to highlight what the main differences are between the two machines. The main difference for threading up will be a top loading bobbin, and hopefully you'll be able to identify this with a number of other makes of machines that we sell on the shop floor. So it has a hard top cover with this model, which has always been popular, and the foot pedal control has additional speed. We have a needle threader at the side and we have a drop-in bobbin. So the needle threaders are found at the side of the needle. We bring it down, it's got a large hook and a small hook. And make sure your needle is in the upright position. We bring the needle threader down and hold it. We thread under the big hook, under the little hook, and then we let go, which pulls the loop of the thread through. Pull that all the way through, and you can bring up your bobbin like we did in the last machine. It has an additional thread cutter at the side, so just pass your thread through to cut it. So onto the drop-in bobbin. You'll identify these drop-in bobbins by the little window where you can see the bobbin. We just open it with the switch at the side, and the bobbins should be wound, so while they're unwinding, they unwind in a clockwise direction. Pop it in as it says drop-in bobbin, and then the little niche in the arrow is referring where you're putting your thread to. So we put the thread into the niche and we just pull it through, and then we can bring up our thread as we did in stage 1. And bring that through, and then we're just going to put our little window lid back in place, and that is the difference. Easier to see, easier to load. On this particular model and the 5025 model, we have a pressure sensitive dial which makes feeding through thin and thick fabric easier, and that puts pressure onto the presser foot dial. With our extension table, we have a little drawer with this model, so you can pull your drawer out to put all your extra feet that come with this model in there. If we remove the extension table, that gives us our free arm, and behind our free arm we have a little lever. This drops the teeth, the dog feed. So if we look at that in close-up, when we press that lever over, the dog feed drop, and so we don't need a plate when we're doing free machine embroidery. And we have a horizontal spool pin with this, so this makes your thread go through easier, doesn't tangle. We have additional spool pin in your kit, so you can use your twin needles. And with this spool pin, we get a spool pin holder, a large and a small one, so we have it that way for hard reels, and with the soft cardboard reels we insert it in the other way. As well as having a length control on the bottom, this particular model has got a width control as well, so we can adjust the width of our stitch. So now we move on to the attachment and feet that come with this machine. So we have an ordinary hemmer foot, we have a one-step buttonhole foot. So the one step is signified by this one step on a machine. And if we move our dial over to the one stitch on the selector, we move our length to the buttonhole. There is a little bit of adjustment there. Our one step buttonhole foot has got a little slide that we pop our button in, and then we slide it shut so that it fits nice and snugly inside. Even though it's a big foot, it still has a bar that we can line up with our presser, foot lever, and snap it into place. By the side here we have our needle threader, but just behind there is another lever, and that is your one-step button lever, and that tells your machine it's got to the desired length and it's time to come back. So it's very important we lower this lever. So then this does it automatically for you. No need to do your 4-step operation. And it will measure it perfectly to the button that is in the back of the foot. We move on to the over edge or over casting foot. It has small bars in the middle of the foot, and when this is stitched right onto the edge, it stops it from curling up. So no need to stitch a little bit in, we can stitch right on the edge with an over casting foot. We have the clear embroidery foot again, which has a small channel which allows the embroidery stitches to pass through, and a selection of embroidery stitches with this model. Then we have our plain zipper foot, so we can do a left and the right side of this foot. A normal zip just has the left hand operation, and that allows you to do cording as well. So moving back to the blind hem stitch, this is a blind hem stitch foot. It has a revolving gauge on it so that we can line up our stitching perfectly. Remember that zigzag just needs to catch the inside of the fold. We line our gauge up then with the inside fold, and we adjust it so the zigzag just catches the edge of that fold. This makes stitching so much easier. There's no error of wiggling while you're stitching. This gauge here is usually used in quilting. It's to give you parallel lines of stitching. So on the presser foot there is a little screw at the top with a hole. We pop the gauge through and tighten it up. You can adjust the length of your gauge to smaller or wider if you want to. You line up that bar with your last line of stitching, and that will give you perfectly parallel lines of stitching. Again, as I said, usually used in quilting. Used in straight stitch or decorative stitches.